Have you ever had that feeling? That unsettling prickle on the back of your neck? The sudden chill that runs down your spine when you're all alone? That feeling that you're not really alone? These aren't just campfire tales. These are whispers from the shadows. Stories from people just like you, who brushed up against something they can't explain. Something unknown. Tonight, we're pulling back the curtain on the things they don't want you to hear. The strange occurrences and eerie encounters that defy all logic. So, turn down the lights, get comfortable, and prepare to question everything you thought you knew. Our first story comes from a park ranger, we'll call him Alex, who spent years working in the vast, silent forests of the Pacific Northwest. He'd seen it all, or so he thought. Bears, mountain lions, lost hikers, but nothing prepared him for what he experienced one autumn night. He was on a routine patrol, miles from any known trail, when his radio started crackling with static. It wasn't unusual, given the terrain. But then, a voice cut through the noise. It was faint, garbled, but it sounded like a child, humming a simple, repeating tune. Alex tried to respond, thinking it might be a lost child. "This is Ranger Alex. Is someone there? What's your location?" The humming stopped. The radio went dead silent. A heavy feeling settled over him, the kind of silence that's louder than any noise. He scanned the dense treeline with his flashlight, its beam cutting through the inky blackness. Nothing. Just the rustle of leaves and the distant hoot of an owl. He brushed it off as a faulty radio, a trick of the mind. But as he turned to head back to his truck, he heard it again. This time, it wasn't coming from the radio. It was coming from the woods, just a few yards away. The same simple, chilling tune, hummed by what sounded like a small child. He froze, his heart pounding in his chest. "Hello," he echoed out, his voice trembling slightly. The humming stopped instantly. He'd never heard it again. But for the rest of his career, Alex refused to patrol that part of the forest after dark. He said the silence there felt watchful. Next, we travel from the deep woods to the quiet suburbs. This story was shared by a woman named Clara, a young nurse who had just started working the night shift at an old, historic hospital. The kind of place with long, echoing corridors and a history that everyone whispered about but no one would confirm. One night, Clara was doing her rounds on the long-term care floor, a wing that was notoriously quiet. Most patients were asleep. As she passed room 330 and she noticed the call light was on. The room was supposed to be empty. It had been 4 weeks, pending a deep cleaning. Thinking it was a system glitch, she went inside to turn it off. The room was cold, much colder than the hallway. The bed was neatly made, the sheets crisp and untouched. As she reached for the call button to reset it, she felt a distinct pressure on her hand, as if someone was gently holding it. She pulled her hand back, startled. There was no one there. Her heart hammered against her ribs. She backed out of the room, her eyes wide, and just as she crossed the threshold, the call light for room 313 blinked on again. She didn't go back in. The next day, she asked one of the older, more experienced nurses about it. The nurse just gave her a knowing look and said, "Oh, that's just Mr. Abernathy. He likes to let us know he's still here. He passed in that room 10 years ago. He was a sweet man, just a little lonely." Clara never felt scared after that, but she always said a quiet goodnight. Mr. Abernathy whenever she passed room 313. Sometimes, the unknown isn't in a remote forest or a historic building. Sometimes, it's right there, on the road with us. This experience comes from a long-haul truck driver named Frank. He'd been driving the same desolate stretch of highway through the Nevada desert for over 20 years. He knew every curve, every dip, every landmark. One starless night, he saw headlights in his rearview mirror. A car was approaching fast, far too fast for this stretch of road. It closed the distance in seconds. But instead of passing, it just stayed right on his tail, its high beams glaring into his mirrors. Frank flashed his brake lights, a universal signal to back off. The car didn't. It stayed glued to his bumper. Frustrated and a little unnerved, Frank sped up. The car matched his speed perfectly. I slowed down. The car slowed down. It was like a shadow he couldn't shake. This went on for nearly 30 minutes. Finally, Frank saw the lights of an all-night truck stop ahead. He signaled, pulled into the lot, and came to a stop. Ready to have a few choice words with the driver behind him, he watched his mirror, waiting for the car to pull in too. But it never did. The moment Frank's truck left the highway, the headlights behind him simply vanished. He got out of his truck and looked back down the dark, empty highway. There was nothing. No car. No taillights. Disappearing into the distance. It was just gone. To this day, Frank wonders who or what was following him through the desert that night. Our next account takes us to a quiet university library, a place of study and silence. A student named Ben was pulling an all-nighter, studying for his final exams in a rarely used section of the archives. It was a labyrinth of towering shelves filled with old, leather-bound books. Around 3 a.m., he was the only person left on the floor besides a single security guard stationed by the elevators. Lost in his notes, he heard a soft thud from a nearby aisle. He figured a book had just shifted or fallen, but then he heard another thud, closer this time, and another. It sounded like someone was walking, but instead of footsteps, the sound was of a heavy book being dropped on the floor, one after another, in a steady rhythm, coming down the aisle toward him. Ben peered around the edge of a shelf. The aisle was empty, but the thudding continued, getting closer and closer. Now, just one aisle over. Thud. Thud. It was right behind his shelf. He could feel the vibration through the floor. He held his breath, too scared to move. Suddenly, it stopped. The silence was deafening. After what felt like an eternity, he slowly packed his bag, his hands shaking. As he walked toward the exit, he glanced down the aisles he'd just come from. In a perfectly straight line, leading from the back of the archives directly to where he had been sitting, lay a single book on the floor in each aisle. It was as if someone, or something, had marked its path right to him. He didn't stay to see what the books were. Our final story is perhaps the most unsettling because it deals with something we all use every day. Our phones. This happened to a woman named Maya. She was at home one evening, watching a movie, when her phone rang. It was an unknown number, but she answered it anyway. All she could hear was static, like a bad connection. She was about to hang up when a voice whispered her name. Maya. It was a distorted, raspy whisper, and it sent a shiver down her spine. "Who is this?" she asked. More static. Then, the voice whispered something that made her blood run cold. It whispered a secret, something she had told no one, a deep, personal fear she had carried since childhood. She slammed the phone down, her heart racing. How could anyone know that? She tried to rationalize, eat a prank, a crossed wire, anything. A few minutes later, her phone buzzed. A text message from the same unknown number. It was a single photo. The photo was of her, sitting on her couch, taken from outside her living room window. In the reflection of the window, she could just make out a faint, shadowy figure standing in her yard. Scream had called the police and locked herself in the bathroom until they arrived. They searched the entire property, but found no one. There were no footprints, no signs of forced entry. The number was untraceable. Maya moved out the next week. She never found out who was watching her, or how they knew her deepest secret. It's a chilling reminder that sometimes the most terrifying horrors are the ones that find a way into our own homes, through the technology we trust. These stories aren't meant to just scare you. They're a glimpse into a world that operates just outside the boundaries of our understanding. They remind us that there are still vast, uncharted territories in our existence, mysteries that logic can't solve and science can't explain. So the next time you feel that unexplainable chill, or hear a strange noise in the quiet of the night, remember these stories. You might not be imagining it. You might just be brushing up against the unknown. Thank you for joining me in the shadows tonight. If you have a story of your own, something you can't explain, share it in the comments below. We'd love to hear it. And if you enjoyed stepping into the unknown with us, don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and ring that notification bell so you won't miss our next journey into the dark. Stay safe and stay curious.